The rain fell relentlessly, a gray veil that not only obscured the sky, but seemed to wash the very hope from the cracked asphalt. In a modest home, where the echo of solitude was almost as palpable as the scent of mildew and the constant worry over accumulating bills, lived Marcos, a single father with the weight of the world on his shoulders. Debts were a specter that haunted his every corner, a silent reminder of a past he struggled to overcome and a future that appeared increasingly bleak. His informal work barely covered basic expenses, and the responsibility for his young daughter, Clara, added a layer of pressure that prevented him from completely succumbing. His days were an exhausting routine of sacrifice, where self-care was an unattainable luxury and moments of peace, rare and precious. He felt trapped in a vicious cycle, where every attempt to escape the mire seemed to sink him deeper. The city, with its indifference and cold lights, appeared to mock his struggle, a stage where his existence was reduced to just another statistic of hardship. Loneliness was a constant companion, amplified by the absence of a support network, forcing him to carry burdens that seemed insufferable for one man alone. It was on one of those nights of torrential downpour, when the wind howled like a famished wolf and lightning ripped across the sky in terrifying flashes, that the unexpected knocked at his door. A frail figure, drenched and shivering with cold, appeared on the threshold. It was a young woman, her eyes wide with fear and desperation, seeking refuge from nature's fury. Marcos's survival instinct screamed at him to shut the door, to not add another problem to his already precarious existence. After all, who was she? Where did she come from? What dangers could she bring into his home, near his daughter? Suspicion, a seed sown by life's harshness, threatened to suffocate the compassion that still resided in his heart. Yet, looking at the pale face and the vulnerability etched in the stranger's eyes, something stronger spoke louder. It was the memory of his own fragility in past moments, the tacit understanding of what it meant to be lost and shelterless. That gesture, at first glance simple and impulsive, was a reflection of the humanity he refused to abandon, even when everything around him seemed to conspire against it. The decision to open the door and offer shelter, however precarious, to the stranger was not made lightly. It was an act of faith in a world that rarely showed kindness, a surge of empathy that defied the pragmatic logic that governed him. He knew he was taking a risk, that he was introducing an unknown variable into his already tumultuous life. But there was something in her gaze, a blend of innocence and helplessness, that compelled him to act. The young woman, who introduced herself as Anna, carried with her a heavy silence, a veil of mystery that hung over her origins and the reason for her flight. She was an enigma wrapped in rain and fear, a blank page waiting to be written. Marcos, whose reality was so defined by scarcity and struggle, could not have imagined that this chance encounter, born from an act of kindness amidst the storm, would be the catalyst for a profound and unexpected transformation in his life. The rainy night, which seemed like just another obstacle to overcome, was about to become the prelude to a journey where gratitude and compassion would be tested, revealing the complexities of human character and the resilience of the spirit in the face of the deepest adversities. From that moment onward, the dynamics of Marcos's modest home shifted. Anna's presence, initially an unknown quantity, began to weave a new narrative amidst the already challenging daily life. Marcos's concerns were split between the relentless stream of bills and the careful observation of the young woman he had taken in. He tried to reconcile his protective instincts with the need to maintain a certain distance, acutely aware that he could not afford to become emotionally entangled in yet another complication. Clara, with the natural curiosity of a child, quickly grew fond of the newcomer. Clara's childlike innocence seemed to disarm Anna, allowing small cracks to appear in her guarded exterior. Moments of shared laughter, impromptu games played in the cramped living room, began to punctuate the underlying tension. Marcos observed these interactions with a mixture of relief and apprehension. It was comforting to see his daughter smile, but the thought that Anna might be a negative influence, or that her presence could attract unwanted attention, was a persistent concern. He knew he needed to understand who Anna was and why she was fleeing. But how to approach this question without seeming intrusive or accusatory presented a delicate dilemma. Marcos's financial predicament, once the focal point of his daily anxieties, now acquired a new dimension with the addition of another person to support, even if only temporarily. Every meal, every dry piece of clothing, every act of care represented an additional sacrifice on his already strained budget. Yet, subtly and unexpectedly, Anna's arrival began to infuse the atmosphere with a different kind of energy. Her gratitude, manifested in small gestures, assisting with household chores with surprising efficiency, preparing a warm cup of tea when Marcos arrived home exhausted from work, or simply offering an understanding smile, created a counterpoint to the material hardships. It was as if, despite the scarcity of resources, the home was being filled with a different form of wealth, one built upon reciprocity and affection. This entanglement of lives, as improbable as it was unforeseen, compelled Marcos to confront his own prejudices and reevaluate his worldview. He, who had always felt marginalized and forgotten by society, now found himself in the position of provider, of someone offering refuge, an act of kindness he himself so desperately wished to receive. Marcos's life transformation wasn't a singular, dramatic event, but a gradual process, initiated by that act of opening the door amidst the storm. The journey that lay ahead promised to test the very limits of his trust and his capacity for forgiveness, not only of others, but of himself. The secrets Anna carried, still veiled, held the potential for revelations that could shatter the fragile stability he sought to build. The essence of human character, so frequently obscured by social conventions and the pressures of modern life, was poised to be exposed in its purest and perhaps most unvarnished form. The small house, once a symbol of his struggle and solitude, was transforming into the stage where hope, even in its darkest moments, could rekindle its light, proving that love and dignity were indeed invaluable riches, far beyond the reach of money. The narrative unfolded, not as a simple tale of charity, but as a profound exploration of the connections that define us and the transformative power of a small act of kindness. Marcos's life was defined by a perpetual struggle against financial adversity and the inherent solitude of his single father status. Debt loomed as the principal impediment, constricting his choices and dictating his daily existence towards mere survival. The city, with its palpable indifference and relentless pace, presented a seemingly hostile environment where empathy was a scarce commodity and security a fleeting mirage. The global financial crisis and the volatility of the informal job market compounded his situation, fostering an atmosphere of perpetual uncertainty, with each day a strenuous endeavor to provide for his daughter, Clara. Clara's mother's absence, a sensitive and unspoken subject, introduced an added stratum of emotional complexity to their familial dynamic, compelling him to embody roles extending beyond that of a mere paternal figure. He felt utterly alone, devoid of any support network, and the infrequent social encounters he experienced were predominantly superficial and transactional, centered around his immediate exigencies. Their home, a modest sanctuary, served simultaneously as a stark reminder of his limitations, a space he strived to keep orderly and safe for Clara, despite the severe scarcity of resources. The central problem Marcos confronted was the apparent impossibility of escaping the cycle of debt and hardship. Every attempt to improve his situation seemed to be thwarted by unforeseen circumstances or a lack of accessible opportunities. He found himself ensnared in a system that appeared to favor capital accumulation at the expense of individual well-being, particularly for those like him who operated on the fringes of the formal economy. The psychological toll of being the sole provider and caregiver without any respite or support was beginning to exact its price, affecting his mental health and his capacity to envision a brighter future. Society, in his view, was a complex organism where meritocracy often masked structural inequalities, leaving behind those who lacked the resources or social capital to compete. His personal experience compelled him to question the nature of justice and fairness, as he felt perpetually at a disadvantage, battling invisible forces that seemed to dictate his destiny. The unique angle of this script lies in how a seemingly insignificant act of kindness, performed by someone in a position of extreme vulnerability, triggers a chain of events that defies expectations and reveals the profound interconnectedness of human beings, even under adverse circumstances. Unlike narratives where charity is an act of power from the haves to the have-nots, here we see a man with almost nothing offering the little he possesses. The story does not focus on a magical resolution to Marcos's financial problems, but on the internal transformation that occurs when he allows himself to reach out to a stranger. The journey of discovery is not merely about Anna's secrets, but about Marcos's rediscovery of his own humanity, his capacity for compassion, his resilience, and his inner strength. The story explores the idea that true wealth resides not in the possession of material goods, but in dignity, love, and human connection, values that often flourish in the most arid soils of hardship. The storm, initially symbolizing chaos and adversity, becomes a symbol of purification and new beginnings, a catalyst for change. What begins as a gesture of humanity, a simple act of offering shelter on a stormy night, unfolds into a journey of discovery, where gratitude and compassion test the boundaries of trust and prejudice. Marcos, a single indebted father, sees his humble life intertwined with the secrets of a runaway girl. Anna, this encounter, born of mutual need for refuge, forces both to confront their own vulnerabilities and preconceived notions. The precariousness of Marcos's financial situation makes him an individual who, despite his own hardships, is capable of a genuinely altruistic act. He has no resources to offer, only space and a modicum of human warmth, which makes his action all the more meaningful. Anna, on the other hand, represents an enigma, a figure who bursts into his life, carrying an unknown past and an uncertain future. The relationship that develops between them is a study in the nature of trust. Marcos needs to trust that Anna poses no threat to him or his daughter Clara. Simultaneously, Anna needs to trust that Marcos will not betray her or judge her based on her past, which she has yet to reveal. This trust is built gradually through small gestures and mutual observation. Marcos's compassion, which compelled him to open the door, is tested as he confronts the complexities of Anna's situation. His prejudices, shaped by his own experiences of marginalization, are challenged by the young woman's reality. He must look beyond appearances and assumptions to see the person behind the mystery. Marcos's humble existence, defined by scarcity and daily struggle, provides the backdrop for this interaction. The contrast between the simplicity of his dwelling and the secrets Anna harbors generates dramatic tension. The house, though unpretentious, evolves into a sanctuary where these two lives intersect and undergo transformation. The ensuing journey is not merely about physical survival, but about emotional healing and the rediscovery of hope. By offering assistance without expectation of reciprocation, Marcos begins to rekindle a light in his own shadowed path. He realizes that, even amidst material poverty, dignity and love are riches that money cannot purchase. The dilemmas they will confront will reveal the true essence of human character. Marcos will have to decide how far he is willing to go to help Anna, even if it means placing himself and his daughter in peril. Anna, in turn, will have to decide if she can be forthright with Marcos and if she is capable of accepting the offered assistance without feeling indebted or exploited. Their interaction will serve as a poignant lesson in how a small act of hope can have a profound and lasting impact, altering not only the trajectory of their own lives, but also how they perceive the world and humanity. The narrative will explore the resilience of the human spirit and the capacity to find light even in the direst of circumstances, demonstrating that love and dignity are the true cornerstones of existence. Marcos, the indebted single father, found his solitary, survival-focused existence suddenly disrupted by the presence of Anna, a mysterious young woman seeking refuge from the storm. The initial act of kindness, an impulse of humanity that led him to open the door of his modest dwelling, triggered a cascade of events that compelled him to confront his own limitations and prejudices. The precariousness of his financial situation, which had previously consumed all his mental and emotional energy, now had to accommodate the presence of a stranger, adding a layer of complexity to his already challenging routine. The relationship that developed between them, initially characterized by distrust and uncertainty, gradually evolved into a test of faith and compassion. Anna's gratitude, expressed through small acts of assistance and quiet attentiveness, began to smooth the rough edges of Marcos's arduous existence. He, who felt ensnared in a perpetual cycle of financial hardship, started to recognize that alternative forms of wealth existed, those immeasurable by monetary value. The dignity with which Anna navigated her circumstances, despite the enigma surrounding her, inspired Marcos to view himself through a different lens. The journey of discovery extended beyond unraveling Anna's secrets. It also encompassed the rediscovery of Marcos's own humanity, his capacity for love and care, within a world that frequently appeared oblivious to his suffering. The dilemmas encountered along the path tested the very foundations of their relationships and beliefs. Marcos found himself compelled to reconcile his protective instincts towards his daughter, Clara, with the imperative to safeguard himself and his home from potential threats. He stood at a critical juncture, where the decision to trust or to retreat into isolation once more carried profound implications. Consequently, the narrative served as a stirring testament to how a small act of hope, an unassuming gesture of kindness, can rekindle light on shadowed paths. It illustrated that love and dignity are invaluable riches, capable of transcending the barriers imposed by poverty and adversity, thereby proving that the true essence of human character is revealed in moments of greatest vulnerability and the commitment to care for another. The interaction between Marcos and Anna, now more firmly established in their shared routine, began to reveal deeper nuances regarding human resilience and the capacity for adaptation in the face of adverse circumstances. Marcos, accustomed to managing scarcity, discovered in Anna an unexpected wellspring of practical optimism. She did not lament. Instead, she devised creative solutions to everyday problems. For instance, upon noticing the fragile structure of a window that allowed cold air to infiltrate, Anna, with scarce resources at her disposal, improvised insulation using salvaged materials she found, demonstrating an ingenuity that Marcos, in his constant preoccupation with finances, rarely allowed himself to exercise. This ability to transform limitations into opportunities, to find beauty and functionality where others would see only refuse, began to inspire Marcos to reconsider his own perspective. He realized that true poverty was not the absence of money, but the lack of inventiveness and a solution-oriented mindset. Furthermore, the dynamic between Anna and Clara afforded Marcos a glimpse into the innocence and inherent adaptability of children. Clara, with her guileless heart, perceived Anna not as a stranger or a burden, but as a nascent friend, a playmate for her youthful diversions. One day, during Marcos's absence in pursuit of employment, Anna discovered Clara grappling with a particularly intricate jigsaw puzzle. Rather than simply providing the solution, Anna sat beside the young girl, patiently guiding her, encouraging her to explore alternative strategies and to persevere through challenges. She explained to Clara that each piece, even if seemingly out of place initially, possessed its designated spot, and that the journey of discovery was as significant as the eventual completion. This subtle lesson in perseverance and the appreciation of process, conveyed through playful interaction, resonated profoundly with Marcos upon hearing of the incident. He came to realize that genuine education transcended the mere impartation of knowledge, extending instead to the cultivation of character and the installation of enduring values. On the other hand, Anna's presence also exposed certain frailties within the very social fabric that Marcos inhabited. The manner in which neighbors or acquaintances reacted to the presence of an unknown person in Marcos's home, with curious glances and malicious whispers, revealed the latent prejudice in his community. Certain looks of distrust were directed at Anna, and some veiled comments were made about Marcos's imprudence in harboring someone without a known past. This forced Marcos to confront not only his own prejudices, but also the necessity of defending his actions and, in a way, protecting Anna from external hostility. For the first time in a long while, he found himself in a position not merely of receiving help, but of defending another person, which added a new layer of responsibility and purpose to his life. Consequently, the mutual trust between Marcos and Anna began to solidify through small acts of shared vulnerability. One afternoon, while they were organizing some of Anna's few possessions, Marcos stumbled upon a small sketchbook. As he flipped through it, he encountered incredibly detailed and expressive drawings, depicting scenes of urban life with a remarkable artistic sensibility. Anna, initially embarrassed, eventually shared that her passion for art was something she had kept hidden, fearing it wasn't a useful or valued skill. Marcos, touched by the beauty and demonstrated talent, encouraged her to continue painting, recognizing in her a gift that could, perhaps, be an outlet or a form of expression that would liberate her from her past. This exchange, where Anna's vulnerability was met with admiration and encouragement by Marcos, strengthened the bond between them, transforming their shelter into a space of mutual validation and growth. Delving deeper into the dynamic between Marcos and Anna, it becomes apparent that her presence not only introduced new tasks and anxieties, but also compelled a re-evaluation of Marcos's own priorities. Previously immersed in the daily struggle for survival, he found himself confronted with the necessity of looking beyond his immediate needs. The way Anna expressed gratitude, for instance, transcended mere words. One morning, noticing that Marcos had stayed up all night, worried about an upcoming bill, Anna utilized the few belongings she had brought with her, some fine fabrics and needles, to mend and give a fresh finish to some of Clara's most worn-out clothes. She didn't just patch them. She transformed simple garments into something more presentable, almost as if she were restoring dignity to the girl's attire. This gesture, devoid of any ulterior motive, touched Marcos profoundly, as he recognized in it genuine care, a demonstration that she was as concerned with Clara's well-being as he was. On the other hand, Anna's interaction with the outside world, however circumscribed, unveiled unexpected facets of her personality and her past. One afternoon, while Marcos was out, an elderly neighbor, Mr. Antonio, took a fall on the sidewalk in front of the house. Anna, without a moment's hesitation, rushed to his aid, offering support and calling for assistance. She soothed him with a serene voice and helped him to his feet, demonstrating a composure and an aptitude for handling emergencies that belied her own seemingly vulnerable state. This action did not go unnoticed by other residents, who bore witness to Anna's act of kindness. Subsequently, Mr. Antonio, in his gratitude, offered Marcos a small gardening job at his home, a service he would not have been able to manage on his own owing to his advanced age. This situation exemplifies how Anna's proactively displayed compassion ultimately generated a tangible benefit for Marcos, creating a positive ripple effect he had not anticipated. A crucial element that emerged was the almost artistic manner in which Anna handled resource scarcity. Faced with a lack of fresh ingredients for a more nutritious meal, she demonstrated an impressive ability to transform basic, low-cost items into flavorful and balanced dishes. For instance, by utilizing seasonal vegetables, which were more accessible and simple seasonings, she managed to create stir-fries and soups that satisfied not only hunger, but also the craving for something more comforting and delicious. Marcos, who often resigned himself to monotonous and repetitive meals due to budgetary constraints, was astonished by Anna's culinary creativity. He began to realize that adversity, when met with ingenuity and a positive outlook, could foster innovation and the discovery of new solutions, even in the most humble circumstances. Furthermore, the personal narrative Anna began to share, albeit fragmented, revealed that her escape was not merely from a situation of physical danger, but also from a profound social inadequacy and a pervasive feeling of not belonging. In a moment of confidence, she mentioned how her family pressured her to follow a life path that did not align with her genuine desires and talents. The art that Marcos had discovered in her notebook was, in fact, her means of expressing this internal dissonance and of seeking a space where she could be her authentic self. This revelation added a layer of complexity to her story, demonstrating that her quest for refuge was also a quest for authenticity and for a place where her gifts would be recognized and valued, rather than suppressed. Although Anna's presence infused Marcos's routine with a sense of lightness and creativity, the stark reality of his debts and the obligation to support two individuals instead of one imposed escalating logistical and emotional challenges. Feeling the burden of responsibility intensify, Marcos actively sought employment opportunities that could generate supplemental income, even if on a temporary basis. He recalled an old acquaintance employed at a recycling cooperative and resolved to contact him, inquiring about any demand for occasional work. This initiative was not merely a response to financial exigencies, but also a testament to his burgeoning resolve to withstand adversity. Upon speaking with his friend, Marcos learned that the cooperative had a significant need for personnel to sort and separate materials. A strenuous task, but one that offered daily remuneration. The prospect of a more regular, albeit modest, cash flow was a welcome respite. However, Marcos's participation in this new endeavor introduced a fresh family dynamic. His absence during the day, now more extensive, compelled Anna to shoulder an even greater responsibility for Clara's care and the household's management. It was within this framework that Anna exhibited a remarkable aptitude for organization and resourcefulness. She instituted a more stringent food rationing system, devising weekly menus that maximized the utilization of every ingredient and minimized waste. Furthermore, she discovered a small local market where fruits and vegetables with minor imperfections were sold at considerably reduced prices. By purchasing these items, she not only saved money, but also ensured the family had access to fresh, nutritious food, something Marcos, in his hectic routine, could not always prioritize. This ability to optimize resources, to find value where others perceived only flaws, was a quality Marcos deeply admired, and which made him question his own limitations. Even more revealing was the way Anna navigated social interactions involving the community. On one occasion, during a neighborhood fair where Marcos was selling some items he no longer used, Anna approached a lady displaying handicrafts. Instead of merely observing, Anna initiated a conversation about weaving and embroidery techniques, demonstrating surprising expertise on the subject. She shared some ideas on optimizing thread and fabric usage, suggesting methods to reduce waste and create more efficient patterns. The lady, initially skeptical, was impressed by Anna's insight and knowledge, and soon the two were exchanging tips and demonstrating techniques to each other. This social engagement, this ability to build bridges and share knowledge so naturally, stood in stark contrast to the isolation Marcos frequently felt. He realized that Anna's strength lay not only in her individual resilience, but also in her capacity to connect and add value to human interactions. Concurrently, Anna's art began to find an unexpected audience. Marcos, while discussing gardening with Mr. Antonio, casually mentioned Anna's talent. Mr. Antonio, a local art enthusiast who frequented exhibitions in small galleries, was intrigued. He proposed that Anna bring some of her drawings so he could show them to a friend who managed a small community gallery. This opportunity, though uncertain, represented a glimmer of hope for Anna, an acknowledgement of her gift that extended beyond the private sphere of her relationship with Marcos and Clara. The prospect of her talent being seen and appreciated by a wider audience added a new dimension to her journey, suggesting that the way out she sought might come not just from escape, but also from the affirmation of her identity and passions. This opening to the outside world, carefully orchestrated by the mutual trust and support of Marcos, began to shape a future that, until then, had seemed unimaginable. Reflecting on this journey thus far, we perceive how the threads of compassion and resilience, woven into the fabric of adversity, begin to form a pattern of hope that transcends mere survival. The manner in which shared vulnerability and acts of kindness, even the most unassuming, operate as catalysts for transformation, shaping not only the present but also future prospects, becomes increasingly apparent. The intersection of material need and human richness, the way dignity flourishes even in arid soil, and the discovery of talents and strengths amidst hardship all converge toward a deeper understanding of the complexity of human relationships and the intrinsic capacity of humankind to seek and offer light. As we approach our conclusion, it becomes evident that the lived experiences, the lessons gleaned, and the connections forged, even amidst unforeseen circumstances, paint a tableau of mutual learning and personal growth. The journey illustrates that an individual's worth is seldom measured by their material possessions, but rather by the depth of their character and the fortitude of their actions. How the barriers of prejudice can be gradually dismantled through exposure to another's reality, and how trust, once established, can flourish on fertile ground of respect and understanding, are elements that resonate with ever-increasing force. The convergence of these elements suggests that true transcendence lies not merely in escaping the storms, but in learning to navigate through them, discovering unexpected resources within oneself and others. The light that emerges from the shadows is not a destination, but a continuous construction, built brick by brick through conscious choices and a commitment to humanity. As we contemplate the unfolding paths, the notion becomes palpable that gestures of generosity, however small they may seem, possess a multiplying power, capable of redefining narratives and sowing a future where dignity and love prevail over scarcity and despair. Amidst this evolving landscape, the profound impact of a simple act of welcome deepens, revealing its capacity to serve as a beacon, guiding not only those directly involved, but also influencing the surrounding environment. The tapestry we are painstakingly unraveling invites us to acknowledge the interconnectedness of our existences and the transformative power inherent in empathy and solidarity, thereby laying the groundwork for a final reflection on the legacy of these encounters. The journey, which commenced amidst the storm, propelled by an act of compassion that defied sheer scarcity, unfurled into a tapestry of revelations that transcended the mere exigency of shelter. Marcos, the single father whose debts seemed an unending Sisyphean cycle, found in Anna, the fleeing stranger, not merely an added burden, but an unexpected mirror to his own humanity. The precariousness of his existence, once an overwhelming weight, transformed into the very stage upon which resilience and dignity discovered novel modes of expression. Gratitude, evinced in subtle yet profound gestures, and the benevolence extended by both Anna and Marcos, dismantled the ramparts of prejudice and suspicion, unveiling the intrinsic strength inherent in human connection. The modest dwelling, previously emblematic of their limitations, evolved into a sanctuary of reciprocal learning, where Anna's artistry flourished amidst unadorned simplicity, and Marcos's inherent generosity found a renewed, more profound purpose. The interweaving of these distinct lives, marked by the sharing of vulnerabilities and the discovery of hidden talents, demonstrated that true wealth is not measured in figures or possessions, but in the capacity to offer and receive support, to see potential where others perceive only lack. Anna's aptitude for resource optimization, her culinary creativity, and her artistic sensibility, combined with Marcos's perseverance in seeking new opportunities and his growing openness to trust, painted a portrait of transformation that resonates beyond the confines of their small community. The lessons regarding the importance of process, the appreciation of authenticity, and the strength emanating from genuine connection were learned not through discourse, but through daily experience, where each overcome challenge fortified their bonds and broadened their worldview. The impact of this encounter initiated by a singular act of humanity, resonates as a potent testament to the human capacity to rekindle light amidst the densest adversities. The story of Marcos and Anna serves as a reminder that, even when the world seems to conspire against us, a small act of hope can be the catalyst for profound and unexpected change. It teaches us that dignity is not a privilege, but an inherent right, and that love, in its myriad manifestations, is the most powerful force capable of transcending social and emotional barriers. True practice, the kind that shapes character and illuminates the path forward, begins now, in the moment we internalize these lessons and allow compassion to guide our actions, recognizing that within each of us resides the potential to be a refuge, a beacon of hope for those seeking safe harbor.